So we just had the last full moon of the year, supermoon, the cold moon, moon in Gemini, which peaked Thursday night into Friday. If you're wondering why things were getting intense or weird. And we're now on Sunday the 7th. It's a good opportunity for us to leave the moon matrix. Now, some people think the imperfect is more authentic. So we'll give this a go. See if we can make sense and find a new direction to point ourselves in. Now, the moon here, you could say, aka the Death Star. Here we are on the Earth. This is an exact replica of the Earth, as you can tell from the extraordinary amount of detail. The vibrant Earth putting off all this energy with all these people and plants and animals. Vibrant green and blue Garden of Eden, where we find ourselves. Putting off all this energy into the ether, into the cosmos. All the energy here. The moon, of course, locks our tides. And its energy. Well, just if anybody wonders, is what shape the Earth actually is. Is it round? Is it a globe? Is it flat or whatever? To me, it would definitely be an egg. It is an egg, and we're born here, so that makes us the egg people, I presume. Okay. So there's also lots of confusion about our predicament and meaning of life and things that trap us and ensnare us. The moon matrix captures all this energy within its grid. The moon is also alive. It's not just the light reflected from the sun. And what people like Gurdjieff would say is that humans, when they're unconscious and unthinking and purely reactive, are food for the moon. And our task is to become more conscious and to embrace the cosmic gift of free will. So we're not just experiencing life like a roller coaster ride. Now, it can still seem like quite an abstract concept. So the simplest way to talk about food for the moon, like a simple example would be, imagine you're in a car, you're driving your car along, and then someone cuts across the lanes, almost causing you to crash, and you go, oh, that flipping mother flipper, flip, right? That's being reactive. Totally normal reaction to have. I'm not completely enlightened, but just trying to ever increase my awareness. So in that sense, those negative emotions are going into here. And then they're going into here as food. Imagining us as part of vast cosmic natural processes and cycles that we're unaware of in our brief mortal lives, and how unimaginable it is to comprehend the vastness of space and the vastness of time that we're always cycling through. I don't know if you can hear the seagulls. So this year has been ending culmination of the year of the snake. The year of the snake, where I've gotten the impression evil has been, I have to cut out some noise there, where evil has been running wild. And we're now coming into the year of the horse in the spring, Chinese year of the horse. And they sensibly have their new year closer to the actual natural world. While in the West we have our new year on 1st of January, which always seems very counterintuitive and counterproductive, because we get this climax with the fireworks and everything, and so I might get the opportunity to film some of those fireworks. But anyway, but we're still right in the depths of winter, and everybody spent their money, and it's still really cold, and electricity is still really expensive, and it's not much happening. And so I always think, it'd be better to have your New Year celebration around the 20th of March. That's really the beginning of the year in alignment with the natural world. Of course, in Ireland we have St. Patrick's Day on the 17th. So everybody endeavours to get wasted. Anyway, so this is very much the cold moon. And when these moons were important to indigenous people, as when you'd be harvesting your crops and when you would be going into hibernation, and whether you survived would be determined by your preparations and your intelligence. Particularly, really talking about people who live in the northern climate and not very much sculpted our civilization compared to other civilizations, where you could just walk around with hardly any clothes on and pick fruit off a tree to survive. We didn't do that. It took a lot more effort, and that drove our civilization in particular ways. So we're coming out of this moon matrix, trying to become ever more self-aware, to enter the year of the horse, running along the ground, the new horizons. So in that sense, the full moon is always a good time to leave things behind. Another sort of simple example would be you're giving up smoking after the full moon, and then you're entraining yourself with new habits new hobbies, new ideas, new pursuits as you go into the new moon. And that's a very simple thing for the individual to experiment with themselves. I mean, for me, I was writing those thousands of words. Um, as a way of processing so much of the insane madness of the last 5 years. But you can't stay in a state of anger. You know, anger is something that gets you moving. You know, as John Lydon said, anger is an energy. Anger helps to break you out of depression, but you can't stay in anger. You can't stay in bitterness. You can't stay in depression. People, of course, get stuck in particular states, but you need to allow them to cycle through to become self-aware. It's all really about, you know, this this chap here becoming self-aware, that you're always in interaction with cosmic forces, and then you're interacting with the layers of the society, the programming, the indoctrination, propaganda. And if you don't conduct that investigation into knowing thyself, you just become swept up in the tide of history that's always going in and out. You could say, you know, the tides are always noticeable. Where I am on the east coast of Dublin. I mean, on Thursday evening, we have these very early nights now. It was incredibly spectacular seeing the full moon over Dublin Bay going past on the train. You know, a scene out of the most extraordinary David Lean film, or the most incredible, you know, nature documentary. But of course, everybody is on the train just staring at their phone. And that's really insidious, how we're all being artificially synchronized into technology. The internet that's never turned off anymore, people's Wi-Fi and phone, because it always represents that, you know, keeping up to date with the latest thing, rather than attuning yourself to natural and cosmic forces that are eternal, that watch civilizations rise and fall. The point is awareness. To achieve awareness, you need to concentrate. You need a task. Concentrate. Is to bring greater awareness. And awareness places us in contact with nature. The divine. And what we're surrounded by in our society is distraction. And distraction is just wasting your energy into a spiral going down, while we want to always be spiraling to the source, the life giver of the sun. The sun must have its own kind of intelligence. One can imagine that when you pass through the veil, you leave your body, the moon matrix is trying to capture you in here. And then sends you back for another go around. The moon as like a block, a holding signal. Well, the sun is the eternal exit of love. Could be like an album title, I suppose. Well, this is more like a, you could say, purgatory processing. So our task, just wondering actually how long this video is, because I certainly don't have the attention span for 2-hour videos, you know. Our task is to concentrate on what we love, which could be art, music, nature, love, all the groovy stuff. To concentrate on a task brings us greater awareness. And that brings us into contact with nature, who is always in its own endless process. And the divine, where all power resides, is now. The present is the present waiting to be opened, where all power resides, where you learn how you as an individual in interaction with cosmic forces learns your own boundaries and becomes self-actualized in understanding that you can always say no. When what the moon wants you always to do is the non thinking of yes. Particularly if you live in a European country where you're continually asked to vote on technocratic referendums. So one can become embroiled in all the evils that face us. Evils of war, manipulation, distortion, the extraction of loosh. When you watch the news, I mean, the last couple of years, from going from the pandemic straight into the Ukrainian war, like new seasons of a TV show, you know, the TV Armageddon. you find yourself uh, manipulated by your own curiosity. You could say the negative curiosity. What happens next? And what happens next is the playing out of the past, whatever, 200 years, or from the time of the French Revolution and the American Revolution, all playing out into the world to come, of what way human beings will live. Because what we all want to do is to remain organic, with our free will, intact. And part of humanity is going to go grey. And we've tried to offer all the warnings we can, just as we offered warnings about jabs and the corruption of our corporate fascist systems that attempt to dictate our lives. To recognize that all of these things are playing out, and you either become part of the scenery, a background person, or you become fully sovereign and accept that we're always traveling through these processes, the endless cycles of infinity, where we may hope to remember the kingdom of heaven is within. And this world becomes blocked off from us. And Lush is that Gnostic concept, I suppose, popularized in recent years by the neo-Gnostics and John Lamb Lash and friends. And, one can interpret it as a symbol of energy transference, of energy vampires, and if you want to believe in the lizard people actually live up here, well, that's up to you, This is a lizard person here. They're not pleasant from what I read, So, when you're talking to somebody and all they do is talk about their problems or talk about all the terrible things in the world, you can leave the conversation feeling drained, while the other person is energized. That's a real energy dynamic, I think. anybody who is awake has experienced. But we can imagine these things are all going on a vast cosmic scale as above.